event του Athens Tableau User Group. Ας δούμε λίγο, νομίζω ότι έχουμε κάποια άτομα που έρχονται πρώτη φορά. Οπότε, κατά τη διάρκεια της παρουσίασης, παρακαλούμε να είστε στο mute. Αν έχετε ερωτήσεις, μπορείτε να τις βάλετε στο chat ή οποιοδήποτε σχόλιο. Και στο τέλος της παρουσίασης μπορούμε να κάνουμε και μια κουβέντα, να ανοίξετε τα μικρόφωνά σας, να κάνετε ό,τι ερωτήσεις έχετε και γενικότερα να γνωριστούμε και λίγο καλύτερα. Όπως είπαμε, η σημερινή ατζέντα περιλαμβάνει την εισαγωγή, να σου πούμε λίγα πράγματα για το ποιοι είμαστε εμείς, τι είναι το Athens Tableau User Group, ποιος είναι ο σημερινός μας ομιλητής και στη συνέχεια θα μας μιλήσει για το Tableau Blueprint, για τι να το χρησιμοποιήσουμε και πώς να το εφαρμόσουμε. Και στο τέλος θα έχουμε χρόνο για ερωτήσεις και συζήτηση. Επειδή κάποιοι μπορεί να έρχονται για πρώτη φορά σε μια συνάντηση του user group μας, να πούμε λίγο περί τίνος πρόκειται. Είναι μια κοινότητα που σκοπό έχει να φέρει κοντά άτομα που χρησιμοποιούν το Tableau για να μοιραστούν τις εμπειρίες τους, να μάθουμε ο ένας από τον άλλον καινούργια πράγματα, να μπορέσουμε να εξελίξουμε τις ικανότητές μας. Συνήθως κάνουμε ένα event κάθε 2 μήνες περίπου και για να ενημερώνεστε για τα event μπορείτε να βάλετε το adsplus.events στο whitelist του email σας για να μην πηγαίνουν στα spam. Και επίσης, αν δεν είστε ήδη μέλη, μπορείτε να μπείτε στο LinkedIn group. Θα μπουν τα link και για τα δύο στο chat, ώστε να λαμβάνετε ενημερώσεις. Μπορείτε και εκεί να ποστάρετε οτιδήποτε σχετικό με Tableau, κάποια θέση εργασίας ή οτιδήποτε άλλο. Αν φτιάξετε κάποιο ωραίο dashboard και θέλετε να το μοιραστείτε με άτομα που θα εκτιμήσουν τη δουλειά σας, μπορείτε να το βάλετε εκεί. Να πούμε λίγα πράγματα για το ποια είναι η ομάδα που οργανώνει τα events. Είναι ο Αντώνης Αγγελάκης, BI Analyst στις Groots. Είμαι εγώ, η Ελένη Γκίκα, Associate Product Manager στη Rose Technostics Ελλάς και ο Άγγελος Παχής δεν είναι σήμερα μαζί μας λόγω ασθένειας, που είναι Trainee Consulting Analyst στο Information Lab στην Αγγλία. Και ο σημερινός μας ομιλητής είναι ο Levinsen, είναι Tableau Jedi, Tableau Ambassador στην InMeta Consulting στη Νορβηγία και είναι και ο leader του Tableau User Group της Νορβηγίας. So, Ture, the stage is yours. And you can start presenting about the Tableau Blueprint. We are all very excited.
Sounds good. Then I need to wait till you share exactly. Thank you. And I'll share my screen. And hopefully you can see the screen there. Got a nice introduction, so there's not much more to say about me, or some, of course. Always like to talk about myself and Tableau. Those are my two favorites, more or less. So as you mentioned, I'm also a Tableau user group leader. So we've actually started now in Norway to do in-person events after the pandemic, and that's really nice to actually see people and meet people, have a drink and eat some pizza and discuss. But we're also doing the hybrid kind of version where also people from, since I live in Bergen on the West Coast, and we tend to have the meeting in Oslo, and people live all over the world. Well, they do, but also all over Norway, so they don't show up necessarily. So we do this hybrid version so people can attend as well. I've been working with Tableau since 2012. Tableau was then at version 7. and I've been a accredited trainer since 2013, where I've trained now over 2,200 people in 15 countries all over the world. But as you can see, that virtual spot up north in Norway there, that's where I've been more or less the last 2 years after I came home from Brussels in mid-March 2020, and then it was just a lockdown from there on. So I'm a consultant, I'm an advisor, and I'm doing a lot of training. So tomorrow or this afternoon, actually, I'm flying over to Oslo to do training for a couple of days in Tableau. And when I'm not doing Tableau, I have a couple of kids, as you can see there. This was last summer. They were, as you can see, really happy because I had to bring them on a jogging trip. It's not because I'm sporty, but they play handball and soccer, and they need to, still when there's a holiday, they need to move a bit around. I think this summer, that was the summer that we did in Norway. This summer we're going to Rhodes. Rods. I can't even already forgot Antonis how to pronounce it, but Rhodos, as we say.
Rhodos, fine.
Rhodos. So we're going there for 2 weeks this summer. I'm really looking forward to that. My other hobbies are then Liverpool, the Premier League team from England. On top right, that's the handball team that I'm a part-time coach for, but also combining with another hobby, flying a drone and taking pictures. I also have a cat named Sissel, as you can see there. And I have maybe one of the biggest collections of Tableau t-shirts and hoodies and caps and swag in Northern Europe or something. I have close to 45 t-shirts and hoodies. But that was enough about me, I guess. We're here to talk about the Tableau blueprint, and the agenda now will be on the blueprint, of course, but also about becoming a data-driven organization, and how Tableau blueprint can help you drive that change, and how you can become more data-driven as well. And then when we talked about the blueprint, also on the next steps, basically, where do you start? How do you measure your progress? And then we're talking about the assessment and some experiences we've had, or I've had with the different companies over the years. And then sharing some links to where to go from here as well. As mentioned in the introduction, if you have any questions, please use the chat window, fill in your questions there. And then after I'm done with the presentation, we'll go through the questions as well, and have a discussion if there's anything that you're wondering about the blueprint as well. So what is different about data-driven organizations versus those who are not, then obviously? So as you all know, or maybe you know, that Tableau has had the same vision or mission to help people see and understand data. That's something that I had since the beginning, back in 2003, when these three guys met in Stanford. So that's something they help people see and understand. That's something that means more to us now than ever, because data gives the people a power, or a superpower for that matter. When people tap into that power, they do amazing things, basically. So data-driven organizations are able to get a better picture of what's going on in the organization. They make smarter decisions, they make them faster, and they help everyone in the organization to be aligned to make those decisions based on one common truth, basically, on data and not on opinions. Even though, people like to have their opinions and their Excel sheets anyways, to say that this is what I've done for the last 20 years, and you have to believe me that this is my gut feeling. And this is something that has been researched as well. as you can see in there, that well, 99% is going to be investing in data and AI in the next years. But data-driven organizations, they perform way better because they are 23 times more likely to add customers if you work in an organization that are reliable on customers. They are 1.5 times more likely to grow revenue by more than 10%, which is something that the shareholders like, at least. And they're 9 times more likely to retain customers as well. So this is sorry, this is only getting more important now with the digital transformation happening every day. So every company that is a data company, well, everybody is a data company in one way or another, but every organization needs to be also data driven. But there is some issues as well. Organizations are, even though they're investing a lot in becoming data driven, and they try to do what they think is the correct thing to do. But recent survey shows that less than 10% of those organizations are actually achieving the analytics at scale. So obviously it's easier if you're a small organization with less people in the organization, but the bigger you are, the harder you fall, or the harder it is to actually achieve this as well. So the surveyed organization, we're seeing data-driven wins here and there. Maybe like in HR, there's a huge success, but 92% were failing to scale those throughout the whole organization. And the problem is then, of course, if you're finding yourself in those 92%, what is the problem, or what can you do about this? Where the scaling doesn't help. So the problem is often that they ask the wrong questions again and again. So when searching for data, you need to report on a KPI, for example. Perhaps you were left wondering, is this data accurate? Is it complete data? Do you trust the data? Is it reliable? Is it recent? And that's of course a general problem. It's not a Tableau problem per se, if you look at the kind of Tableau as a front end, because shit in is shit out. So you need to look at the data prepping and how to get the data in, make sure that it is complete, reliable and recent. And if you are a senior leader who doesn't have access to the data to ask and answer your own question, and then you need to ask somebody or find somebody with the right skill set to do the analytics or the analysis for you. And that's something I've seen many times when I do training for larger organizations where they have a huge implementation of Tableau. There's 50, 100, 200 people that are using Tableau desktop to do analytics, but it's still people are sent then to training like senior management, because they ask the same data analysts to build them a report, and those same data analysts don't have time to help everybody all the time, because they have a job to do as well. So then they go and learn how to use the tool, for example. So that's one of the pit stops we'll be talking about when we talk about the data or the Tableau blueprint as well. So the one of the most important questions, are we working for the data, or is the data working for us? So are we actually unlocking business value? This is something that is that's important to consider when you are trying to become data driven, basically. So the technology is one thing. I assume all of you guys also love Tableau, so that's why you're part of the Tableau user group. But the data culture, if you don't have a data culture in your organization, It doesn't help if there's 5 people who love Tableau and they're building the most amazing analysis and dashboards and everything. They are on top of everything. They do the beta testing, and they download download the newest version. They are building all kinds of amazing stuff, participate in the Tableau community with the Sports Viz Tuesdays and Iron Quest and the Makeover Monday. Well, that's on hiatus now, but you know what I mean. There's so many things you can do to build your own skill set, but it's important that the organization do the strategic investments in that technology and as I said, the culture. So on the right hand side here, when we look at the data culture, organization that successfully scale the analytics is the ones that have a proper data culture, where everyone in the organization has the ability to work with the data they need, and they are not reliable on other people to make it for them or build it for them. And when an organization fosters this type of data culture, there's a huge fundamental shift in the way that people think about and act on data, and decisions through the organization become way more data driven. And it's not people are not using, or they're scrapping the old legacy systems. They're scrapping the Excel sheets, and they trust the data that they're working on. I mean, it's really funny how many times I've done training for people in Tableau over the years, and I think there maybe be 1 or 2 out of the tens and hundreds types of trainings I've done where there's not that question, excuse me, sir, Mr. Teacher, how this is all beautiful and nice, but how can I get this data in Excel? You probably have seen or heard that same question so many times as well. So it's frustrating sometimes, but you need to you need to adapt, and even though the customer is always right, you need to try to guide them and show them that the data culture is an important thing. And when we look at the technology, the answer could be Tableau, obviously, but it's important to have a technology that is foundational to foster a successful data culture. So of course, Tableau platform is a good way to start, but when I'm going to deep dive now more into the blueprint, even though it's called Tableau Blueprint, this has been used by both me and other of my colleagues and other organizations to use the same blueprint to build the data culture and then the technology. It doesn't have to be Tableau, but obviously when we're in a Tableau user group and I'm a Tableau Jedi, I would always say use the Tableau platform, because it will lower your barriers for new users. It's a low threshold to start use it, and that brings also the power to the advanced users, giving the ability to create complete and trusted pictures of your data and make these smarter and faster decisions through, we can use augmented analytical capabilities and empower everyone with the self-service analytics. Hence, again, building a great data culture. So the one piece that's missing here now is the how. How can we how can we select the right technology? That's fine, but for how to build the right data culture. And the how, that's the Tableau blueprint. So how will you drive change? How will you become data driven? This is something that Tableau has researched over the years based on all the customers, all the projects, everything that has happened over many years. I've also been working in companies that have their own type of blueprint or methodology, that depending on how will you build a data warehouse project, how will you build a front end project or an ETL project and so on. And obviously Tableau Blueprint is a combination of many versions of methodology that customers and consultants and partners and everyone have been using over the years, and then made this this specific set that is called the Tableau Blueprint. So it's a from a high perspective, you can see the big picture, of course, to plan how to be successful, how to avoid doing all the mistakes that people have done before. Obviously, you will still be making mistakes, but maybe not as many, and not necessarily the same as people have done before. This is repeatable, so there's so many processes that you could repeat and find the one that fits your organization as well. That's of course obviously important as well, and it's proven based on the thousands of customers that have done these type of projects over and over again. And the nice little map you see in here looks like a kind of a subway map as well. We'll go through the different stop signs and the different levels of or the different lines in here about agility, proficiency, and the community. And then, of course, see what do you need to become data-driven to be successful. So if we start on the left-hand side, and this is something that I've seen also over the years, that there's one person that attend a seminar, they download Tableau, they're really happy and eager about it, become a super user. But as long as there's no, it's not anchored in the organization or through the management, they don't have any people with power to make both the investments, of course, but also to make the strategic decisions on how should the organization move forward. Then they're sitting there and being kind of the king of the hill of their very small hill, and it's not working and not spreading throughout the organization. So the idea of becoming data-driven begins by thinking through the business goals for the organization and the objectives the organization is pursuing, and asking the simple question of how can data be used to drive forward those business outcomes. And the second step is then to identify those stakeholders, those who will be involved in the effort. So of course it should be people who are down on the floor, get their hands dirty, building stuff or doing stuff, working with the data. But it needs to be people that knows the data, that works with the data. It needs to be on the people who knows the technology, the line of business executives to the data stewards, if you have one. In many companies, it's the same people that are many of those type of roles, of course. But we also should consider our consumers. The consumers could be internal consumers, it could be external, depending on what type of organization you have. So all of these individuals will play a critical role, not just in the initial deployment of your analytics environment, but also as your organization scales the use of the data and analytics, and also foster the right behaviors that beliefs that leads to successful data culture. So there's a lot of things that should be in place. I'll get back to that also when we talk about the assessment in the end of this presentation. If we look at the track or line in here for the agility track, it provides the guidance on how to deploy a secure, stable environment that evolves as the business needs change. And now we're talking about the kind of the hardware, or as we see, the deployment of the technology, but after everything is deployed, also the monitoring and maintenance of this. Is that done in-house? Is it on, for example, Tableau Online, so you don't have to think too much about the what's it called? Make it can't remember the name now, but you know, the make sure that it has a 99.99% uptime, for example. That's something that's obviously important and critical for any organization. So to install, configure the software, the blueprint provides guidance on the best way to build and also the right size and secure your environment. I've seen customers that have implemented huge implementations of Tableau, a big server. Everyone has access to everything, and it's kind of a free for all. And then that's a could be a good way to get everyone involved. There's no kind of limitations. But then I've seen interesting dashboards, for example, where salespeople, the sales manager could see his kind of sales and bonuses, and then they can also see his sub-employees. And then the sub-employee could only see his or her sales and bonuses. What they then haven't or didn't think about when they did deploying this and publishing data and dashboards was security. So they had some user filters, great, works good. But if you then publish a dashboard and forget to say or remove the edit functionality on the browser or on the server, where everyone can go in, edit this beautiful dashboard where you only can see your own data, you edit, and then you go to filters and just remove the user filter, you can see everyone's bonuses and sales and whatever. So we had a bit longer discussion there on how to solve that and how to avoid those kind of mistakes / disasters in the future. So that's part of the agility track now. To build this even more into the tech stack is also the monitoring on how it's being used and is it being used correctly, as I mentioned earlier. And from there we have the maintenance. The Tableau blueprint will guide you on how to do load testing, capacity planning, how to do upgrades. As I mentioned, if you do have then an online environment, that will go on its own, obviously. But organizations generate an increasingly huge amount of data with each passing day, and it needs a tech stack that is agile and can continue to grow with the needs of the business. You know, Tableau platform is a good way to handle that, but it also depends a lot on where you get your data from. If it's a system or a data warehouse that are getting slower and slower every day, then you should consider maybe should you move into some cloud solutions or other in-memory solution. But that's kind of a bit out of the scope, but you get the idea as well. Then the next track, and then it's the proficiency and how to educate your people. Obviously, I love the education bits of it since I'm doing a lot of training, but that's also something that realized when we started with Tableau back in the days, or 10 years ago, became a partner. And my boss at the time was like, well, it's good this land and expand philosophy. You can sell a couple of Tableau licenses, and it's so easy to use that we sell it and we can't help them, or we can't sell any consultancy or anything else. But you see early that doing the education by somebody who both know the tool, you can have those internally, obviously, if you have some super users, to avoid all the pitfalls, basically, to make sure that people are not wasting time in Googling or doing all the mistakes when they're building stuff or using the tool. So having those education plans, it can't be like a one size fits all, because organizations are different. Some are small, some are bigger, some have different kind of both capabilities and everything. So the degree of to which we need someone to be the kind of data literate will vary based on the specific job roles and how they expect to use the data as well. We also know that some people have, or not some, that people have different learning preferences. It's online videos, it's e-learning, it's classroom trainings, whatever the form. Deliberate and dedicated focus on this education is an essential part to the success. At least that's been my also my experience now over the years. You get way different questions from organizations and users that haven't done any kind of proper certified training versus those who are finding out on their own. There's a lot of brilliant people, of course, and they're learning a lot by not doing it, but it's a good thing to have that as a part of the on this proficiency track. When it comes to measurement, that's something that's very often overlooked, but very important. How many users are actually adopting and engaging with the tech stack? What data are they using? How are they using it? And what value have they created? By monitoring or measuring this, basically, finding all of these data points, that will help the organization optimize the Tableau environment, also the data and the content to make sure it's meeting the needs of the business. Why should you create a dashboard where you have a filter or whatever analysis you're doing, where it's filtering by just this last year and only for that region or for that product type or for whatever. And then in a few months, somebody will ask the same question, but there's just a minor tweak. So then somebody is building something new. They're maybe creating an extract and publishing that on the Tableau server. The server is growing and growing in size. Instead of using published data sources, instead of creating a dashboard that have these filters shown, so people can switch between years or products or regions or whatever they have, and people can see and understand and also get more insight when they have those type of dashboards. So doing this measurement as well, see how people are actually using it and what are they not using, which is also very important. Do they don't know about these features, this functionality, the option they have? Haven't we done the education good enough, or the information internally of how to use these things? And something that have been something that I've learned both the hard way and also over time, the practice of having a tool like Tableau or Power BI, Click, or whatever you have, these simple drag and drop tools where you can add animation and color, and you can create so much beautiful but also complex and maybe too complicated dashboards. I went to this visual analytic training with Stephen Few, that some of you might have heard about, the visual guru with the show me the numbers books and seminars. And you kind of learned how to present data when you have this type of data, or when you're going to present data that are ranked or relative to something or over time and so on. And obviously color, how to use color. And it's kind of go home after that in shame, and then sit and cry in a corner for a couple of days, and then you just delete everything that you've done and start all over again and try to follow the visual best practice. And that's something that I've seen now also when I'm doing that kind of training, and also put that into almost every discussion I have with somebody when they need help to build something, or I'm building something for them. The analytics best practice is really important. It makes the analytics become mainstream in the organization. It's important that the best practices are set to help guide the user and how they should be using the data. So Tableau still has some issues when it comes to templates, color palettes, and other elements that could be easier, but there's a lot of those things built in already in the tool, and it's getting better. And also the what's called the universal interface. So when it comes to make sure that if you're a public organization, for example, you're publishing data externally, you should make sure that people can see and understand what you're presenting, if they're colorblind, if they have problem of reading, so they can use the keyboard to navigate, and everything else that's important to have those guidelines. Then again, it's always a challenge when you have designers or the communication department in a company, and they would like to follow this template. They need to have this color and this color, because that's what they have and everything else. And it's not necessarily the visual best practice when you're combining these colors, or you have to do this big pie chart kind of thing that they ask you to build, but it's not the best way. So learning that and have that as part of the educational and when you're doing the education, it's really important. And also makes it way more easy when you're operating analytics at a massive scale or bigger scale than just a small organization. The best practices help to establish clear guidelines for the organization to follow, and then getting or accelerating the speed to insight. And then the last track in here, the community. That's something we're all part of now today as well. And every time you meet up at the user group, something that I really love to engage in, the Norwegian user group or other user groups, join those, see what happens, do a presentation, and really looking forward. And we didn't discuss that, Leni and Antonis, if you're going to, or any of your members are going to the TC in May in Las Vegas, but I'm heading over to get some sun, obviously, but also to meet the data fam. That's really important for Tableau, and also as you see here in the blueprint. So to build this data culture, we need to build a community of data enthusiasts that inspire and celebrate data-driven wins, as it says in here. So it's a critical differentiator between the organizations who are successful and those who are not. And also it begins with the internal communication. So a strong intranet, or whatever people are using it today. I mean, there's Slack and Teams and all kinds of communication tools to establish the connection within the community internally. So it gives everyone the ability to interact with others in real time, asking and answering questions, so they can speed up the delivery and on whatever they're working on. And also when it comes to engagement, to pull people together in the spirit of cross-functional learning and collaboration in an effort to get people excited about data and Tableau. So internal user groups inside of organizations, I've seen many customers succeed in doing the internal user groups or Tableau days, analytical summits, or internal Tableau doctor sessions as well. That's something that organizations inherit or get from the Tableau community as well. Have those internally. Do your own makeover Mondays, for example. Bring in a data set where everybody knows something about, either if it's some company-wide or could even be some sports related, or something that people get people excited, and do those kind of makeover Mondays or internal stuff. Everything that's fun. And if you're able to get some Tableau swag or something else, just to get people excited and have some competitions as well. So that's something that I've seen has a tremendous impact on driving the excitement and changing the behavior around data as well. It's nothing more fun to see when you have some of those kind of super users either present some data that they've done in Tableau, and everybody's like, oh my God, I need to have that software. I need to build something like that. Or if they come over to you and ask, I have this Excel sheet or I have this something, and I would like to build something, but it's so difficult, and it's so my data is so complicated. And then you just connect to either you use some prep builder because you need to fix some data, or just connect to Tableau, and then with some drag and drop magic, you suddenly have built an interactive dashboard with their data, and they get insights straight away. That's that's always fun. And then finally, support. You need to establish a strong support environment internally that allows the organization to keep the environment humming along and get blockers out of the way as soon as possible, so people can get back into the flow of analysis. So obviously you can buy support services from Tableau, but having that internal support as well, it's important, because not all people are confident or able to connect well, not able, but or even allowed to connect to the customer portal that you will have when you're a Tableau customer and sign in all their problems. So if you have kind of a first line internal support to fix all those problems, or gather all that, if one person have a problem, maybe several people have it. That's important. And then finally, having a strong plan around all of these elements as well will help them build a strong user community within the organization. So community is obviously also important. Everything is important in here. And then on top of this, these lines that goes from basically from beginning to the end, is the governance, and that's something that has and is also very often kind of overlooked. So to have that, the balance between security and data access, and make sure that people trust the data, but they're not too limited. So the modern type of governance framework, where we balance the security and privacy with openness and sharing. Of course, you might have sensitive data, or something that are not allowed, or everyone is not allowed to access the data. So that's something that you need to build into the trust as well when you're building the system. So in this section of the Tableau blueprint, you will then find guidance on how to strike that balance through thinking about controls, roles, processes, and so on. When you're defining or you're building, when you're presenting or publishing something, you need to know what kind of issues you will have when it comes to roles and security levels, and what is inherited on the project, on the site, on the dashboard, on the sheet even. And there's still a lot of things there that are difficult, but the blueprint will help you guide you in this. So it's also important to note that governance is not something that's one and done. You need to revisit this often. As I mentioned that customer earlier, they didn't even start by thinking about it until we realized that this was not going too well, or it went well, but there was a lot of stuff that they hadn't thought about. And then suddenly we had to go from everything is free to, okay, now we need to have some boundaries, we need to have some rules. And there was a lot of humming and murmuring in the background kind of the users. But when we had good control of how to build the guidelines of how to publish and how to access data and how to set up security, and we had the templates, people tend to be happy as well. There's always somebody who are a bit pissed off because they can't do everything that they did before, but then you need to balance this as well. So the pace of change is accelerating, which means that the business needs change, as does the data and the content you have in your environment, and also the users who are accessing the environment is changing all the time. So having a good governance model evolves with those changes, so the organization can continue to successfully drive adoption and safely use the data as well. So this is the Tableau blueprint. that I talked about now. This is the methodology on how to become a data-driven organization. It's not so that you should have 100% score on or implement everything at once or at all when you start. So this is a bit on how we are looking at now the assessment. How will you go to assess where do you start basically, and how can you measure your progress? So as we talked about in the beginning, there's a lot of questions that you need to ask. Tableau Blueprint, I have to say, is quite good, great even at sometimes, depending on. That's something we talked about in the beginning before we started as well with Antonio. Said whenever people ask you a question about the blueprint or Tableau or whatever in life, the answer is always it depends. But and that's obviously true, but there's a lot to it. So it's everything is pretty interconnected, and it requiring the engagement of a lot of stakeholders to navigate. So that's also something that's important with the, if we go back 2 steps with this, the exec advocacy and project teams, we need to have this grounded from the top down basically. So so where do we begin? So that you can realize the value of the data and every investment. Well, then we have the assessment. It's basically a web page you sign up for at tableau.com/blueprint assessment, and then it helps you navigate that complexity and your way of becoming data driven. So you will go through, there's a lot of questions. It's roughly 20 minutes if I'm, well, that also depends on how quick you are and how you would like to answer it, if you need to have other people involved, but 20 minutes per track or something like that. And then you will see where you are today, and it will give you actionable, personalized recommendations on where to go from there. So it's based on the data culture research and the blueprint. So it's a mashup of the best practices of analytics and the expertise of thousands of customers that have gone through this before, curated to help you turn the repeatable processes into core capabilities. So it will measure your organization, the maturity, and provide you with a detailed plan on how to move forward. So you can do this on your own. You can, but it's not a kind of a one-person show either. It should be, it could be done by chief data officer, director of analytics, line of business leader, server admin, community leader, or other type of stakeholders in the organization. So it features different parts personalized by level and role as well. So you get insight from the entire organization. So it's not kind of a one person, one king of the hill trying to do this as well. So it won't take you too long. It will have more people, or it will multiply by the number of people that will do it. But the more people that fill this in on different levels, with levels of the organization and different roles, the better the detailed plan that you will get basically. And you will get your results and also the recommended steps. So you'll get scores. How far are you on data maturity? And if you're not very high, you will get visualization where you are and actionable recommendations and listing out the steps you need to grow the organization or the organization's capabilities basically. So the results will also feature use cases from different organizations throughout the world, so you can get inspiration on how you can progress to become data driven. So you can look at this and think about this as your success plan. And whenever you go back and you've done something, or you have matured, or you have improved on any of the steps, you can sorry, you can go back and change this, mark those completed actions as done, and then your score will dynamically update and showing you how far you progressed in here as well. And then where do you go from here? Basically, you need to identify your stakeholders, who should be part of this, who should be committed to do this, to get your organization to be not necessarily data-driven, but more data-driven that you might be today. So we'll talked about this now from a kind of a very high 10,000-foot view, technology, data, culture, and then we are looking at this a bit more in detail on the Tableau blueprint. So I encourage everyone that are interested in this to go to that webpage to complete the blueprint assessment. It doesn't cost anything, so it's free to do it. If you have a local partner or you have a local key account from Tableau, you can have them assist you and guide you to do this as well. Then you will measure where you are and then get the plan where you will go from here. And that basically, the first thing is to figure out who should participate, as I mentioned. The more people you get, the more different type of people you get representing your business, the governance, proficiency, agility, and so on. When you have identified those, maybe do a kickoff call or a kickoff in-person meeting if everybody is located close. Everybody would like to meet up now anyways. And then you can share about a bit of information about what the assessment is and what you expect in terms of the completion timeline. So you set a timeline. So the assessment will take no more than 20 minutes to complete, but you should give everybody maybe a week or two to do it, because then they can have a look, they can think about what they should answer and how to complete it. And then you could do a debrief, see how the results are, see what the recommendations are, and then you can align on the next steps. Where should we go from here? And then you will have this maybe something similar to this, that you are 17% on the analytics strategy, you're 22% on the education, you're 100% on monitoring, because you're just awesome at doing that already. So then you go back, you solve or you improve, you follow the guidelines, and then you update, you mark it done, and then the percentages will increase as you move along. And as I mentioned, there's no goal of getting this to be 100% all over the entire subway map in here, but going from wherever you are when you do the assessment and everything that is an increase is a start of a success, basically, of becoming more data driven. And that was the last slide for me. I can put it on this if you would like to have my contact information. That's down there. And then I think that, now we're opening up for discussions, questions and everything. And do you want me to, should we just then stop sharing for now? And then we just have our faces in here?
Yeah, I think that would be okay. And if anyone, since we're very few, if anyone wants to unmute, or if you feel more comfortable with stopping the recording and then having a more relaxed conversation. I just have one closing slide to show, and then we can go ahead with all of the questions.
Yeah, I see that there's a couple of, there's some comments as well. I like that. I wouldn't mind adding a grease to my map of where I've done training. So obviously feel free to contact me, and we'll fix that. But that's one thing. And I liked I don't even have 45 t-shirts at all. So I have a lot of those, as you saw. And there was a question about costs. So I think that was also answered through the presentation. The blueprint itself, that's free. You have to just sign up on the Tableau when you are going to tableau.com blueprints. I'm going to put that in the chat, the link to the blueprint. Then you just sign in to the Tableau webpage, and you don't pay anything for the blueprint at all. So it's not an add-on, it's not a product per se, or it's not a software. And if you would like to introduce the tool, the blueprint to your organization tomorrow morning, yes, you can. Just go to that link. This is like a questionnaire. Yes, it should be shared. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be shared to everybody in the entire organization that are using Tableau. If you say that you have 50 desktop users and you have 300 people on the server or as an explorer or viewer license, it's not a point to have all of those do the assessment, but you need to have, or you should have rather, you should have some of those. If you have desktop users that are not too active versus those that are very active, you should have a couple of both of these, for example. You should have some of the end user or the consumers, have them fill in this, but it might be that it's kind of a bit over their head, or they're just opening up a report and clicking around in it. So maybe it will be a bit strange for them to answer that kind of survey or that assessment. But you should have people from different types of organization, from different HR, finance, sales, whatever, production, whatever you have in your organization, have somebody from the more people with more different roles and levels of experience makes your end results even better. I think that was at least most of those questions. I'm just going to find that.
I also have some questions too, but
yeah,
I prefer to communicate them from the video. So regarding the education of people in a large scale organization, have you seen any best practices? Let's say that one option is to educate people through some tutorials and split them into beginners, intermediate users, or advanced users. Maybe one more proposal is to create some to praise them if they are engaged with the Tableau as a tool. I think that there are some practices. Have you ever wondered what works best, or from your experience?
Yeah,
in many organizations I've worked for, we've tried many things. Of course, there are some best practices that work for sure, and others maybe not, because non-tech savvy people will easily give up all this kind of stuff if they see it like a mountain in front of them.
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of people attending training. People that their experience is hardly opening up an Excel sheet, basically. And then they are really afraid that when they start using this tool, they drag and drop and they are doing something with the data. They're afraid that they can break the data or break the visualizations or whatever. It's really strange what kind of thoughts people have when they when they enter a type of training. I've done both the kind of build your own training for that specific customer. I've done a lot of that. Okay, if you work in that or that part of the organization, we get your data and then we are building something. But I don't like it that much, because there will always be one person or two in the back saying that, okay, I now have learned how to build a scatter plot, which is nice. But the data you have in there, it's not correct because there's a difference of 2% with whatever I've done in Excel or somewhere else. And the focus is not on the tool, it's more on the data. So Tableau has created these the fundamental, intermediate, and advanced training 2-day sessions, or you can combine all kinds of stuff. I'll put in the chat a Tableau public website, which Tableau classes should I take. So it's a list of the desktop classes, the visual analytics, web, prep, and server. And then it's listed of what kind of features are you trying to, or gaps would you like to fill in your knowledge. And then you can see what kind of, that's the official training. And then you're working with data that are not necessarily relevant to you, but it's relevant to how to use the tool. And when it comes to visual analytics, of course, then it's also not your data per se, but it's how to use the visual best practice. So what we do, especially if there's a kind of a big implementation, then we build an education plan. So now we're doing fundamentals training, 2 days. We learn how to use the tool. They are going from kind of 0 to quite proficient quite fast. And then what I like to do then after a week or two is to do a, now you can have a Tableau doctor session. So now you could book an hour with your problem, because then people have started to build stuff and then they get stuck. Either they could, of course, be that they have forgotten something from the training. So then I can just say, well, you just look at chapter 2 or look at that example. But it's obviously when they start working with their own data that they know, and then they know the techniques and the best practice and how to build stuff, then they can, okay, I've now trying to build a timeline or data over time with some products and some whatever, and it doesn't look good, or what should I consider? Then we do that, and then after that day of maybe 10 different sessions or 7 different sessions, write up a kind of this is what the problem was, this is how we solved it, and then we share that with everyone. And then they work with Tableau on their own for some time. And for those who say that there's 50 or 20 people that went for the first training, 15 of those are using Tableau every day or almost every day. 5 of them, they love Excel better. It wasn't for them. But at least now they also know a better way of asking and putting in the requirements for what they can ask for someone to build for them. And then a month or 2 after, we do desktop to intermediate, and then people get more techniques to learn. We can do the same kind of follow-up afterwards, and then after maybe half a year, we do desktop 3, and that's not, then you're getting less and less people in there, because then it's really detail on Tableau, sorry, on table calculations, level of detail calculations and stuff that some people use, some people don't want to go near them, as you might know.
I see.
But I also like to do, before desktop 3, I would always like to do the visual analytics, because after they've done the first couple of trainings and they start building stuff, it's important that they don't build all the wrong stuff, if you know what I mean. When they're building a scatter plot when they should be building a bar chart, or they're using 15 different colors in one line chart and they shouldn't, and so on. So they kind of don't learn all the bad ways and then take them with them forever.
Yeah, we also have one more question from Yanis. Tuve, I would like to ask, this question speaks to our hearts, I believe. So it is, Tuve, I would like to ask, how would you handle incoming task requests that are like, please create a dashboard like that custom-made Excel sheet for us?
Yeah, let's say thank you, and I'll call you to know. That's a very classical question, and you get it all along, and then you should try to, you could do it and then enjoy it, but then they're not using Tableau as Tableau should be used. And is it really so that you need to have that Excel sheet with the 50 columns and the 200 or 2,000 or 200,000 rows of data? You should you could create that one, but you could also create a more of the guided analytics as Tableau is, where you say that this is a Excel sheet where you have some geography, you have some dates, and you have some details as well. So create a map of Greek, where we have all your customers aggregated with some regions. If you click on any region, then you get some bar charts with all the data for that spread over different years, for example. You have some KPIs on the top, add some filters, add some interactivity, and then you show them both of those versions. And then they can say, or then they can then they can see that okay, so this is possible to do with my data, with that simple or complex table that I have. Yes, it is. And then most likely in 8 out of 10, there's always those two that they still will need to have that boring Excel or table. But if you have those 8 out of 10, they will then just ask for more. Very often.
I think it's okay. Yanis, thanks you, Tore, for your answer. One more question, Tore, is I was wondering if what's the best way to organize the projects in a Tableau server? It's a dilemma, like should we organize the projects per department or per business entity, let's say users, orders, or regions or stuff like that? Have you ever faced this question? How should the project directory
that depends as well.
Yeah,
that depends as well, but there's a lot of people are misusing the sites or using way too many sites instead of using projects, because there's so many limitations when you're moving data from or you can't move data from sites to sites. So I tend to like to use way more of the projects than sites. If I have sites, I have maybe the Q&A, not the Q&A, but the quality, what's it called? The development phase, and you have the production phase, like that on sites. But you have different departments and organization, or departments in different projects. That's quite the norm for me, at least.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, this is Marius. Let me also open my video. Hello, Tore. Nice to meet you, all of you. Another follow-up question from my side is that, from your experience, what's the best way to lift barriers? You know, whatever you said so far, it has to do with barriers. And I mean that you have to say to people, you know, don't be so data oriented. For example, don't use this Excel. Don't push yourselves to use Tableau. And there is a constant bargaining. Yeah, if I could say.
It is. It's kind of a change in the mindset of people. That's the biggest hurdle I see. That people need to go from the just looking at all your data all the time, the big Excels and everything like that, into to get aggregated data, get kind of the overview, and then drill down to the detail, and get people to understand that. That's one of the biggest hurdles I've seen when in general of becoming data driven.
And do you believe with if we include the blueprint tool of Tableau in our organizations, do you think that these barriers will be lifted easier?
Yeah, because then people will see that, okay, are we only on 17% on this particular track, for example, or stop sign, and then they need to understand that we need to get better, and you get guidelines, you get help in there, but you also need to have this from the top, as I mentioned. It doesn't help if you're a kind of you're a hands-on guy and you're working and you have 5 people above you in the hierarchy. If the people above you don't buy into it, then it's really difficult. But the blueprint will help because then you have the guidelines, you have the assessment, and you get people active and interested in it as well. So I think that will help.
Sorry, another follow-up question, maybe a silly one question. You are gonna get like a call or some advice from a Tableau rep afterwards in the next steps. This is what it wasn't really clear for me.
No, you don't. It's everything you do is on your own. But if you would like to have some assistant, then a local Tableau partner, that a reseller or a consultancy company, or your key account from Tableau could assist you if you're interested to kind of see where do I go next? How can I move on with that, basically? But that's not something that's part of the blueprint. You need to ask for it, and Tableau itself might give you some guidelines, but if you need to kind of to get training, need to do other stuff, then of course they charge for it. If you're purchasing Tableau license from a partner, they might guide you at some point, and then they would probably charge you as well. So that's where the costs come in. I need to. I said that I'm going to Oslo today, and I just got a phone call that the taxi is outside. So I unfortunately have to sign off now. But I have added my contact information, so feel free to contact me if you have any more questions as well.
Thank you very, very much, Ture.
Thank you very much.
And see you in Rhodes this summer.
Yeah.
Bye.
Enjoy the flight.
Thank you.
The flight.
Bye-bye.